Yesterday I put out my Piggy theory about what T.S.P means and who it is inside of the game and as a part of the storyline. But a lot of you guys, as you can see here, have responded saying that you think it is T.S.P, the sister pig, and this is going based off of this.
And that is T.S.P, the sister piggy. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so Creekcraft's theory is that T.S.P means the sister piggy. So we're going to break down his theory, some of the tenets of his theory, and basically we're going to debunk that theory here in this video, and we're going to show you why it is not the sister piggy. So here's the first claim that he makes that we're going to talk about.
Now, this also raises the question of who was the pig in the first chapter. A lot of people thought, including me, that the first, pig that we encounter in chapter 1, the enemy pig that attacked us, was Peppa Pig, but it's not. So real quick, I want to make it clear. Okay, the chapter 1 piggy was Peppa Pig's cousin. The chapter 2 piggy was, I believe, mom. And then the chapter 3 piggy was dad. And then obviously we've got George and Penny in this one.
Okay, so the very foundation of his theory operates on the fact that in the chapter 1, it's actually the cousin and it is not Penny. So we're going to show you why that is not quite right. So here we have the inspiration for the characters. It is Peppa Pig and her family. She's got George, mom, and dad. Now here in the game, we've got them in the little bottom corner. You can see here looking at their outfits, we've got the same colors for Peppa Pig. We've got the little brother, which is George. He's got a blue one. The dad's got a little teal green one, and then the mom's got kind of like an orange colored one right there. We've also seen nothing in the game to indicate that Piggy from the first one is actually the cousin. So they have little brother, they have Piggy. So like, are these both the cousins, but then they're hanging out with their uncle and so this doesn't really make any sense. The core family here, we've got Penny, we've got George, we've got the mom, and we've got the dad. So I don't think that baseline assumption that he puts together there, I don't think that's true. I think that this is Penny and this is George right here. And also, another thing that Creek says in his video,
Penny is Peppa Pig and Penny is George's sister, just like in the show.
So if this is just like in the show, as he says, then this is just the core family. We've got Penny, we've got George, we've got the mom, we've got the dad. There's no cousins as a part of this story. So in my opinion, I mean, that really puts a hole in his theory just from the very beginning, because I'm thinking that Penny is the monster there from chapter 1, and that only makes sense. And so she's infected. She's not actually running around helping with Mr. P. She's not doing anything. She's not writing notes. I'm pretty sure that these people who are infected are not writing notes. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, debunking some other theories, the one that we talk about, the 7 potions, but we're going to talk about that one just a little bit more towards the end. And then moving on into the video and talking about different pieces of evidence, here is one little thing that Creek mentions in his theory.
And there's actually some evidence that backs this up, because if you remember the mall chapter, you remember the note where a lot of people were like, hey, don't trust the signal, or hey, don't trust the sisters, i.e., Zizzy's sisters that we see in the safe house. Well, I think you guys are right. I think it is don't trust the sisters, but instead of sisters, I think it's sister. Don't trust the sister, aka George's sister Penny, because she's got some ulterior motives going on.
Okay, now here's the thing about that. First of all, Penny having ulterior motives going on, I think she's infected, so I don't think she has any ulterior motives going on if we just refer back to the last point. But this note, don't trust the SI, and the I isn't really necessarily visible, but the way this note is written, like, there would have to be more. Even if it said don't trust the sisters, there's still a lot of space after the don't and the trust, and who writes a note like that? And if they do, then this could mean so many other things. It could mean, like, don't trust the sinister potato. Maybe that's what T.S.P means. It could mean something like don't trust the 6 players, because there are 6 players in the game and a server, and maybe that means something as well. But I don't think it means don't trust the sister, because again, this note probably has a lot more to it, and it is also incomplete, and therefore I would say inconclusive and cannot be really used as proof. Okay, so now moving on to the next point made by Creek in his video as a part of his theory.
Mr. P recognizes George, and the only way that this could have been possible for him to recognize him is if they have met before. Now, here's the interesting thing. How could Mr. P have met George if George didn't go with his family to volunteer to take the potions at the hospital? Mr. P, for the entirety of the story so far, has never came into contact with George, so how did they know each other?
Okay, so I am going to go and explain to you, I'm going to show you a little clip from the theory of mine that I put together yesterday, and this clip is going to explain to you exactly how Mr. P knows who George Pig is. George Piggy ran away to be safe, but the family was being observed in their home by Mr. P, who decided to lock all of the doors and keep them from leaving their home, hoping that they would all soon die off. So there you have it, guys. Mr. P was watching the house and started seeing when the family was getting infected, and that is why he locked all the doors. He also saw that the officer showed up in there, and so he locked the officer in the house as well. And that fits in perfectly with my theory. So that would make sense why Mr. P would know who George Pig is, because he saw that George Pig was in there with his family. They were all going to sleep. He was observing the family to see what happened, and he saw that they started getting affected, and that is when Mr. P locked the doors, was after he saw that George Piggy got out of the house. Now, there is a theory that perhaps George is infected, and he kind of goes back and forth between being infected and being normal George. So maybe while observing the house, Mr. P saw that George was infected, and maybe that's why he thinks that George is dead when he sees them at the end of chapter 11. But either way, he knows who George is, and I think it's because he was watching the house after he gave the potions to the other people in the family. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the next point that was made here by Creek in his video, and then we're going to address it as well. Some of the parts I might actually think are accurate, but then again, we're going to talk about the parts that I don't think are so accurate.
I think George might be test subject 0, the one mentioned in the notes. I know we talked about this previously, but some new evidence came up and it just makes sense. All right, get this. So Penny somehow came into contact with Mr. P and helped Mr. P infect Georgie. It also explains why Penny just completely left George. She already knew he was infected. She didn't want anything to do with him, so she just left. That makes sense.
Okay, so I don't really know for sure if George is actually infected or not. If he is infected, then maybe he has a way that he turns into a monster and then he turns back. We don't really know for sure. That was all based on a dream, but also based on a dream. You can tell that George and his sister Penny had a good relationship. They shared a bunk bed. He was looking for her first when he woke up, and it seems like they probably had a pretty good relationship. So I'm thinking, why would Penny try to infect her brother? It just does not make sense with that as an excuse or a reason why Mr. P would know who Georgie is, honestly. Also, you gotta remember, it was a dream, so the fact that he feels like his whole family abandoned him, it makes sense that he saw an image of his sister walking away from him. Okay, so I think that pretty much covers most of the arguments, basically, that T.S.P. means the sister pig. I've got some other reasons here, so that was just basically Creek's reasons that we went against, and I think the foundational one is the fact that it is the whole family, it's not the cousin, and that the monster in chapter 1 was actually Penny, and that she is not writing notes because she is infected, and she actually was a bad, scary person in the game, so there actually was already an evil Peppa Pig as a part of this whole thing. So also T.S.P., who refers to themselves as the perspective of their sibling. Like, would you refer to yourself as, like, if you have a brother or a sister, like, do you call yourself the brother? Like, do you make your sibling the main focus of what you're talking about? No, you would call yourself Penny. So if Penny was still alive, that would probably be signing papers Penny. And here to address just one last little remark made by Creek in his video.
Penny Piggy, she may be using this whole, widespread apocalypse scenario for her own plans.
And at this point, we don't really know of any plans for Penny. It doesn't make any sense. We know that Mr. P is trying to find a cure to save his wife, and that they made a potion that caused everything to go on. But what is Penny's incentives? What's going on? Why would she intentionally infect her brother, who she loves? And what does she have to gain from any of this? So I don't see really any motive. You have to really throw your imagination into the wind to try to think that Penny has anything to gain from this whole thing. Otherwise, if they start throwing that in chapter 12, there's going to be a lot of explaining to do. So the fact that Penny is sinister, and this whole thing about, T.S.P. meaning the sister pig, I really don't think that makes any sense at all. Now, there's some other people who have made other claims that it means like the 7 potions or something like that, and I don't see how that would make sense either. First of all, potions wouldn't be able to write notes. Potions are inanimate objects, and they don't have personalities, but there is supposedly the 7 people that drank the potions, which those people would be infected, right? So the people who are infected would not be all working together like collaboratively to like write notes to each other. And so in my opinion, that theory itself doesn't really make a lot of sense either. Now, I've put the link to my theory from yesterday in this video if you guys want to check it out, and just a little bit of concept here. If you were thinking, how does it make sense that he's Mr. P and T.S.P. at the same time? Think the Spider-Man movie, the old Spider-Man movie from I think the 1990s. There was Norman, who was also the Green Goblin. He had multiple personalities. One of his personalities were evil, and both the different personalities were talking to each other and also conflicting with each other. So that would make sense why Mr. P and T.S.P. actually send notes to each other, because they can't communicate directly, because they're the same person but they're also a different person, because it is a split personality altogether. If you guys are new here, I would love to have you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching. We'll talk to you guys later.